I am Sean Webb, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Ra Goddess, and I am rolling with Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Dave Meltzer, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Zach Poitras, and this is Your Superior Self.
I'm Ginny Sarasvati, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What is up, Superior Nation? Welcome back to Your Superior Self. I'm Trey Downs, and thank you for taking the time to hang out like that. That's awesome. Like I appreciate all of you and what you guys are doing for the show. It truly is an amazing experience for me just to connect with some of you and just really be that medium for you guys to learn and grow. Like it truly is special for me. And I tell you what else is special is today's conversation with Diane Hamilton. She is probably one of the coolest people that I've met in a long time. I mean, she has a unique story. And for those who do not know, she is an author. Her new book is Compassionate Conversations: How to Speak and Listen from the Heart. And she's also an award-winning meditator, which I didn't know you can win an award for that. But for sure, if anybody wins anything, it definitely is Diane. I mean, she's been meditating for over 35 years. I mean, I've been doing it for a year, and it's hard. Imagine 35 years, and imagine the insight you gain from 35 years of meditation, like who you truly meet when you meditate for 35 years. Like that self, that higher self, that consciousness, like you got to meet that a couple of times, more than a couple. And like, let's say, I mean, you really, truly understand your being at that point, I would assume. But then again, like that self falls away. So who is the self if the ego falls away? Anyway, all right. We talk a lot about that in this conversation. And this happened, I think, maybe in May. I think this conversation was recorded in May. So I've definitely learned so much more from then to now about my own self and the meditation techniques that I use. And I'm totally different than who I was then. So it's like this reoccurring theme that we grow regardless of time. And regardless of our experiences, like we grow. That is our nature. That is our being. And it's just fun to go back and listen to this conversation because I was totally different back then than I am right now. And some of the belief systems have strengthened in me. And I've learned a whole variety of mystical techniques and mystical points of views. And it's just cool to come back and listen to this conversation with Diane, and her experience in the world is unique in itself, just the way that she traveled, and she has a great insight on how to connect with people. And here's a little clip from our conversation.
Human beings prefer oneness. We prefer sameness. It's like when we're in a group of people that are our friends and they speak our language and they dress the way we do and they like what we do, we all relax. And that when there is difference, that separation or that difference actually can be exciting because there's two-ness. Where there's two, there's energy, there's excitement, so it could be like erotic energy, it could be aggression, it could be creative energy. But where there's two, there's energy. And so people if you can show people a roadmap, if you can help people find a way to become the same, they actually prefer that state. And so that's what a mediator always has going for them, is that there's a natural inclination as to want to be one.
And a lot of that is just instinctual for us to want to be like other people, and to be different is bad. That's how we biologically are wired, and that's how we evolved, and it's hard to break that. And this book gives you techniques on how you guys can facilitate better conversations. Yeah, buddy. I am excited for you guys to listen to this. I really hope that you enjoy it. Please go to yoursuperiorself.com. Leave me a message. Give me your thoughts on what you thought about the conversation, your thoughts on communication and some of the conversations that you've had that you necessarily didn't want to have, but you forced yourself to, and how they went and what you could have done better. You can also follow me on social media, on Twitter at DownsTrey and Instagram at TDowns80. So I won't keep you waiting any longer. Here is my conversation with Diane Hamilton.
Hi, I'm Diane Hamilton, and this is Your Superior Self.
Diane, thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
Really happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Trey.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited because I love talking about mystical subjects. I love talking about meditation, Zen, all of that. Why don't you give everyone like a background, like, bring them up to date about you and your experiences.
Okay, so I'm 61 years old. I'm a child of the American West. I grew up riding horses. I was a rodeo queen.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You wrote that in your, I was going to ask you about that. How'd that come to be?
Well, I just grew up in a small town on the border between Nevada and Salt Lake City. And I grew up riding horses in the mountains as a kid. I spent kind of all day long. I think actually I learned to meditate riding horses in the mountains because I'd start out in the morning and I'd have lots of thoughts and ideas. And by the time the day wore on, end of the day, there'd just be nothing left. And I'd just be riding my horse and no thought and just simply being for hours on end. So I really think that had a lot to do with how I learned to sit. And I was always sitting upright in a saddle. So I think that naturally came about. And then, when, like we do, when you do some stuff a lot, we often end up doing it with other people, and then we end up competing and having contests and seeing how good we are at it. And that's how my life unfolded. I started in young riding groups, and then I was in the high school rodeo, and then I was in the Miss Rodeo America pageant, and there you have it. So that was my early days I was also, I was an ordinary American girl until I had 7 of my friends die in a period of about 4 months. And that really significantly changed my life because it turned me away from, you might say, kind of my relative concerns to what does it really mean to be a human being, given that we are born and we die, and what is this life really about? So I think my spiritual and my philosophical journey began when that happened, when I was 17.
That's pretty heavy for 17. 7 died. Was it in an airplane crash?
4 died in an airplane. 1 was killed in a knife fight, believe it or not. Someone stole his radio, back in those days, it was an 8-track player from his car, and someone told him who it was. And the guy was just out of prison, and he was working in a kind of a greasy spoon. And my friend, who was 18, kind of confronted him about it. And the guy ran into the kitchen, got a knife, and stabbed my friend in the heart.
Jeez.
My friend died on the spot.
Wow.
Yeah. Super intense.
Yeah.
And then I had another one who died in an automobile accident. And then I had another one who, believe it or not, committed suicide. So I just was like confronted by death in so many different forms. A lot of it was tragic and difficult.
So death turned you inside of yourself, like to look inward?
Yes.
Like, how did you have that insight though? Like, I don't think a lot of people would have done that.
It was a little bit of a, maybe a lot of your listeners have moments in their lives where things don't go according to plan. Maybe you get divorced, or you lose a job, or maybe you're an athlete and you get injured and you can't recover. And so you kind of have to regroup and you have to rethink. And so just as I was going to college, that whole question arose for me, like, wow, we die, and what does it mean? And what does it mean to be human? And so I kind of went down a road of studying philosophy and literature, and it didn't scratch the itch. It gave me lots of ideas about being human, but for whatever reason, when I started to read Buddhism, it it addressed my issues. It addressed my questions.
What about it though? Like, what about it scratched, the itch?
Scratch the itch. Well, first of all, the Buddhist tradition is non-theistic, meaning that it's not about cultivating a relationship to a higher power or deity. It's about becoming a full, wholehearted human being. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, we have to confront the fact of impermanence and the fact of death. We have to confront the fact of suffering. And we have to confront the fact of what is the self. Or you might say egolessness, the way in which we were identified as Diane, but actually that's a pretty limited way to identify. And so those are called the 3 marks of existence in Buddhism, and they're sort of the things that one has to confront in order to enter the Buddhist path. So that was right up my alley because I was having such a deep existential crisis that I was like, yeah, that's what I need to do is look at those things.
So I'm also reading, in addition to your book, I've been reading Dropping Ashes on the Buddha. It's a teachings of Zen master Sun San, and
Great.
trying to learn a little bit about Zen myself.
He's a Korean master. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like Zen is just stopping thoughts, right? Like not trying to have any thoughts. I'm confused a little bit about it because it talks, basically saying, what's the difference between that stone and us? Obviously there's nothing, right? Like we think, but we're the same, I don't know, material, or we're the same being, we're the same thing. However, we have thoughts. So without, stop your thinking and you're essentially the same thing kind of. I don't know if I'm close on that, but that's what I'm getting. Like I'll think about that. I'm going to try and find like an excerpt. But it seems like, is that the backbone of Zen? Like to eliminate your thoughts, to be like just.
So the backbone of Zen, is sitting meditation, is Zazen. And that what we discover in sitting meditation, let's think about it scientifically a little bit. Let's use what we know about brain science, because I think that will help us and help your audience. So basically, there are 3 parts to the brain, right? There's the old reptilian brain, fight or flight, pretty binary. Then we have this midbrain that has a lot to do with where emotions are housed and human bonding and our relational lives and all of that. And then we have this crazy, out of control, wild prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex gives us language, it gives us mathematics. It's just like this incredible, who knows even what it is. What we notice is that when one is, let's say, filled with thought, stressed over the day, thinking about 1,000 things, if we come to stillness, if we dial down the activity of cognition and we open up what's called the experiencing network, and we open up kind of the here and now experience of being in our senses and sitting still, allow ourselves to notice the breath, thought arises, but we let it go. We just keep identifying deeper and deeper with the here and now and with this quality of being here. That suddenly there's an experience that when thought is dialed down, it's allowed to come and go, we didn't try to turn it off, but that basically there's a quality of presence and well-being. And so as we start noticing this well-being, then we see that in fact, we are continuous with all things. There's no real separation between me and the air. There's no real separation between me and the earth, the ground. It's right below me. I can feel the activity of gravity in my spine. I can feel it in my feet. I feel it in my sits bones. So the earth and I are not separate. I can feel the water quality in my system. I feel buoyancy. I feel lightness. And then there's just this kind of relaxation. Oh, I belong here. Oh, this is me. This earth, this existence, this cosmos is not other than me. We're the same. I belong. So that's a little softer way of saying it. That we just, because what thought tends to do is it creates a lot of separation in the mind. We tend to get preoccupied with the self. We get preoccupied with our projects. And so we tend to kind of live in our thoughts, and our thoughts are not helping us connect to what is in the here and now. So it's just a practice of dialing it down, opening up the experiencing network, experiencing well-being, seeing ourselves as belonging, really feeling that we belong.
I love how you explain that. Like, you just made me relax right then, just even talking about it. It was perfect. Like, you have the perfect voice for that. You should probably do that. Just make a CD or whatever, MP3, whatever they do now of Zen meditation.
Great.
Do you read any of the Seth books at all?
You know, I did actually way back in the day. In fact, I left when I was about 29. I had spent 2.5 years at Naropa Institute, at the only Buddhist college in the country. And when I finished, I went to Kathmandu, and I spent some time with Tibetan teachers there. And for whatever reason, I was in a used bookstore in, there's some places in Kathmandu that are kind of, a lot of Westerners go there, and there was a used bookstore. And for whatever reason, I got this Seth book, and I read the Seth book. And I remember actually the Seth, it's channeled material by this woman, Jane Roberts, right?
Yep.
And basically she says Buddhism is a little bit bleak. It's a little morbid, it focuses too much on impermanence. I remember her saying that, or him saying that, whoever it is. Yeah.
But a lot of it, I mean, I'm thinking I'm on chapter 4 or something like that. But everything he's talking about is basically, he talks about the play. He talks about, basically we're the main characters of this play. However, we have more. This isn't the only consciousness that we're in right now. There's an ultimate consciousness, but however, we can direct our consciousness wherever we want to gain the experiences. And this right now, like me speaking to you, is a part of my play. However, there's different dimensions where my higher being is, because we're multi-dimensional beings. And, but to learn more about my true being, I have to direct my consciousness to my inner self. He doesn't say meditation, but I'm taking it as that. And so I'm learning to meditate more. And I've also have this book, The Interior Castle. I don't know if you read that. So this is Saint Teresa, I guess it's Avila, and she talks
Avila.
about
Avila.
I can't say that.
It's okay. I think she was French.
I just say Avila because I know a guy has the same name. His name's Avila. But however,
Cool.
she talks about the inner castles and how to experience that.
She does talk about that. Yes.
And I'm taking that as experiencing through meditation, experiencing the inner self. It seems like to experience God or experience a higher consciousness, to experience our true selves, it all starts within. It starts with directing your focus on the inside, the chakras, wherever they are, the energy, relaxing the body, being still, sitting with, that uneasiness when you sit down and your body wants to move around because you don't do this as much, and kind of concentrating on this, on your, not having thoughts, but you have thoughts, but accepting that you're having thoughts. All of that, everything. And these are different. I mean, this is, Christianity, this is Zen Buddha, and this is a channeler. And there's 3 different books that kind of say the same thing.
All saying the same thing.
Meditation.
Absolutely. Sometimes Ken Wilber, who's been a big influence of mine, he is an American philosopher, thinker, writer, who basically was training to become a doctor, but also had just a very deep inner life, and you might say was a mystic. And so he was trying to reconcile kind of the inner and the outer. And he says that one of the things that's so extraordinary right now is that great traditions, the great spiritual traditions, have these roadmaps for spiritual development. Like Teresa of Avila has her interior castles. Sensanin has his Zen practice. There's this channeled material. I know this woman, Esther and Hicks, online is like, she's a channeled person who leads a lot of people right now. He says that there's been no other time in history when these maps, these practices, these rituals have been so available, and that part of our challenge is that we have so much opportunity that in some ways it's kind of hard to know how to limit ourselves and how to go deeper, because suddenly all this is revealed, all these inner roadmaps. So it's super cool.
It is super cool, but has it been available to the East and just not us? I feel like we're just catching up, or maybe it's just technology where we're getting, like you said, made more available to this type of these resources.
There's kind of, so if we think about the religions of the West, and we think about Judaism and we think about Islam, and Islam is Western Christianity, that they're each of the great traditions have an inner core. They have a mystical core, of Sufism or contemplative Christianity. But for the most part, religion is practiced to help us relate to being a human being, to participate in our communities, to become ethical. Excuse me, but not necessarily to realize enlightenment. Enlightenment is sort of at the core of all the traditions, and it requires a lot more intense investigation than going to church and being a good person.
That's so crazy. I'm such a believer in reincarnation.
Tell me. I want to hear about that. Tell me about it.
So I was born Methodist. Well, I wasn't born Methodist. I was baptized Methodist, and then as I got older, I kind of fell out of that a little bit, just strayed. I was always, believed in Jesus, Christianity. However, when I married my wife, I converted to Catholicism and really got into that. And what sparked my journey for me was my priest gave me a book called Resisting Happiness, and I learned about resistance. And resistance is for me, I found to be an actual energy out there that tells you or tries to win the day, right? Like that tries to actually tell you can't do something, keeps you in the bed in the morning when you want to get up and work out. It's just a physical thing. But for me, I always thought it was me being lazy. Like, I don't want to do that. But then I was able to externalize that and say, it's resistance trying to win the day. And so I was able to turn my mind around on itself and say, dude, you're not lazy, man. It's this thing called resistance that's trying to take your day. It's trying to win your day from you. And so I was able to motivate myself to start learning more, to start reading more books, to start doing the things that made me a better person. Great. And it's led me to being and finding more spiritual resources, mystical text that I wouldn't normally read, that I was scared to read because whatever reasons. And I started learning about reincarnation, and I read Edgar Cayce.
I like Edgar Cayce.
I love
amazing, right? He was amazing.
But here's a man who grew up in Christianity. It read the Bible the entire Bible every year of his life, and had a gift of being able to go into a trance and help people with whatever diagnosis or whatever ailments they had.
I remember that first story where does he have a test or something, and he accidentally falls asleep on the book, and then he wakes up the next day and he literally
his dad kept him up, right? Like, so he had that vision. He was out in the woods. He sees the lady who might be Mother Mary. I don't know, but he sees a lady. All he says, God wants to grant you your wish. And he says, all I want to do is help other people. Wow. And so she's basically like, all right, so your wish is granted. And then his dad, he started doing bad in school. His dad kept him up till 11 o'clock at night, just trying to study, and he couldn't absorb the info. Right. He's like, just let me sleep, Dad. Let me sleep. And he falls asleep on the book. And then the next morning, he, for some reason, memorized the entire book from
like the whole all of it was there. It was just, he had it.
He had it. And that's how he went through school. And I don't know where I was going with that, but past lives. So yeah. But up to a certain point, it was all about ailments, physical ailments, holistic medicine. and he was like the father of holistic medicine.
He healed his son. Remember, his son had the
and
explosion.
His
Remember
wife too. Yeah.
Yeah, his son got blinded with a explosion, and
Well, he healed himself too. Remember, he couldn't speak for like a year. He couldn't speak for like a year, and he went into that trance and was able to heal himself. He could speak after that.
Yeah, he's remarkable. And I have to say, whenever I read Edgar Cayce, he just seems like he's speaking truth. You know, when I read him, I'm like, yeah, okay, good, makes sense. You know, he's amazing. Absolutely. So how did it lead you to believe in past lives?
Well, I got to the point where I'm just reading this, and I didn't know where it was going. It was just about holistic health. I'm thinking, all right, so he's just, you know, he can go into a trance and he can heal people, or not heal, but help them get better. Okay, that's cool. And then he starts talking about how he wanted to help people, and they started asking philosophical questions and things like that. And it got to a point where he was talking to his son, and he starts talking about he went to Chicago for some guy, and this is where I'm kind of getting a little gray on the story, where he was trying to help him out, and he did a reading for him, and he talked about reincarnation, coming back. We've done this before because our souls want to get that experience. They want to learn. They need to develop. They need to in order to get to be with God, we need to reach this spiritual awareness or spiritual level before we can do that, rejoin him in whatever way.
That's what you're talking about in the very beginning when who was it you were talking about? Different dimensions. Seth.
Yes.
Different dimensions that we have to cultivate, different dimensions. Okay, go ahead.
And it's actually the book that I had like this awareness. I don't want to call it an awakening. Maybe it's an awakening. However, so I'm giving my youngest daughter a bath. She's 15 months old, and I'm sitting here and I'm just, you know, giving her a bath, washing her, feeling joy. And I'm thinking about Edgar Cayce in his book, and I'm thinking about the reincarnation, the idea of it, the theory. And I'm like, something hits me. I'm like, this is why we come back. To experience this, to experience the human emotion, this right now, this joy is what I come back for every time. But it's also why I come back to feel the anger, the jealousy, the pain. It's to have these human emotions, because somewhere we don't feel that. That's why we keep coming back, for the experience. That is the experience. And then I realized, this is God's gift. It's not the external rewards. It's not the successes. It's not the downloads. It's not the book. It's not the fans. It's the moments are God's gift. Every moment. This moment right now, talking to you, is God's gift. And then it just sparked me to start reading other material, and I wanted to find out more. So now I'm reading more about past life regressions, and you know, how many times have I done this? And, you know, hypnosis and life in between lives. I mean, it's, you know, I don't know. I'm hooked to it. I'm on the whole idea. So
makes sense too.
Yeah. I don't mean to hijack the interview. But.
No, that's great. No, I'm interested too. I mean, my life makes a little more sense when we include reincarnation. Like, how in the world did I become a Buddhist and a Zen teacher? Like, that's strange.
I talked to Dr. Gay Hendrick, and he said, what do you say? He's like, it's not too silly of an idea to think that we've been here 3 times. I mean, we're here once, right? That's kind of amazing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, once you open the door, you know, it could be lots of times.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, reincarnation, I get it. I mean, there, you know, even
do you have any glimpses of any of your past lives?
I have not. I want to, though. I mean, all right. So there is one, but I don't know if it's me or if it's kind of weird. But whenever I run, so I'm changing, you know, brain wave. I don't know if it's brain waves, or I'm changing my consciousness state. So when I run for long distances, so I can experience different types of flow states. So I go from beta to alpha to theta. And when I'm running, I'm getting into, you know, obviously alpha. And I had a vision of like, maybe I was running in the woods or something like that, as far as like a maybe an Indian or something like that. Like I remember seeing running with like moccasins and like buffalo leather or something. Like I remember seeing that for an instant, and then like it went out, and then like also, was that me? Or did I make that up? Like
Right.
I don't know. You know,
Is
like,
that
it's
my
just,
imagination,
yeah.
or is that actually an experience that I've had? Yeah. It's
But
it's
I
an
want to
interest.
so much, like so badly, like experience one just to experience it. You know, have you ever tried that?
You know, I never have, but I also am, like I say, my life doesn't make a lot of sense without past lives, because it's like I grew up in a small Western town. And like I said, I was an American girl riding horses. And the next thing I know, I'm like sitting in retreats in Nepal, you know, like, and why was I so comfortable with that? So I often thought maybe in past lives I've been a
Have you,
Buddhist
like,
meditator.
out of all these locations and all over the world and your experience with meditation, have you experienced like all consciousness? Like I've talked to some people where they've been able to get to a state where they leave their body and enter this all consciousness state or consciousness place where they can, you know, basically travel the world, whatever, and see other things happening. Like, have you done that through meditation?
No. Who are those guys? I want to learn.
Sean Webb is a friend of mine. He wrote the book Mind Hacking Happiness.
Okay.
And he talks about that. He said he was utilizing the Zen, because he's like chasing it now. Like he's experiencing it. So he's chasing it now.
Is he?
He's talking about going down to Peru and doing some of the psilocybin stuff and
ayahuasca.
Yeah, ayahuasca ceremonies, just to chase it, I think. But he in his book, it's 2 volumes. It's 1,500 pages, and it's
Oh wow!
Like you got to buy the Audible though, because the Audible he sounds like he's just speaking to you. Like you and I are just having a conversation. Like,
what's his name again?
Sean Webb, and his book is called Mind Hacking Happiness. He explains. So he explains his journey in the 2nd volume. So I think it's the blue copy.
Okay.
I read both of them. Phenomenal. Great dude too. Probably somebody you would connect very much. He might have you on the show, so I might reach out, because he has a podcast too. It's called Two Seals and a Walrus. He's got two Navy, he's got 2 Navy SEALs on there, and then him, and he considers himself the walrus.
That's fun. I like that.
But same thing. You know, he likes talking about the same things that I like to talk about, and he's a great dude. And he had an experience, and he very vividly explains like how he was meditating on his bed, and he was trying to eliminate the thoughts. And next thing you know, he enters the consciousness that is all, and he travels across, I guess, Africa or something like that, and he sees a soldier and a woman, and it's horrific. It's like very graphic the way that he describes it. But the soldier was raping the woman, and he was like, I felt this abundance of love, like this entire, like I felt love for the victim, and I could see her, and I could see her pain, but I also felt love for the guy who was doing it. Like I felt this love, like I felt this overwhelming love, like this is my child, that he just forgets who he is, like all the things that he's been through, like his life, all of his experiences, he forgets who he is. And the way he explains it, it's like so powerful. Yeah, you have to check him out. I mean, that story doesn't do it justice, but
no, I totally feel that. Yeah.
Let's talk about your book. I mean, we talked the entire time. We haven't talked.
Let's talk about my book. Okay, cool.
The one thing I love about it is the science that you throw in there, like how we became to be basically, how I don't know if you call it the Big Bang, but I don't know if that's in there or not. But.
Well, I just thought it was important, because I'm a mediator and I help people have conversations that are hard to have, and people are, they want to be better at it and they're not very good at it and they suffer from it. And I'm just trying to place it all in an evolutionary context to kind of encourage people that as human beings, as you're saying, we're evolving as a species, we're evolving as consciousness, our skill set is changing as our consciousness evolves. So I don't want people to feel bad if they don't already have skills, because it's something that we're all learning together. It's not that some certain group of people have them and others don't. It's that we're all learning them right now. So that's why that first chapter is written that way.
So how do you go from meditation to conversations? Like, and I'm just saying, looking from outside, like how do you write that book? Like what inspired that book?
Well, I always like to joke with people that I'm a very talented mediator without a lot of training, and I'm not a very talented meditator, and I have a ton of training. You know? So I made my living as a mediator, and one of the things that I was naturally good at is helping people talk to each other. And I saw very clearly that meditation and mediation are really the same thing. That when you sit on a cushion in meditation, your body becomes still and your breath harmonizes and the mind relaxes, and you're basically bringing body, speech, and mind, or you're noticing oneness of body, speech, and mind in your environment. And when we mediate, it's the same. People come in fighting, they come in with disputes, they don't get along, they see things differently. And my job as a mediator is to kind of join and listen to both sides and then kind of start to hear the commonalities and then gradually bring them together. So it's really kind of the same thing where we're discovering sort of the dimension of oneness. And so at the end of a mediation, you have agreement. At the end of meditation, you have coherence of body, speech, and mind. So mediation, meditation, I guess the same thing. One is inner, one is outer.
But how do you get like the two sides, right? Because the book talks about some polarizing subjects, religion, politics, everything that can start a fight. It's going to happen. How do you get the two sides to come together, to see the commonalities in the thing? You know, whatever subject it may be. Like I can take two people and we can agree on sports, but when we talk about politics, you know, depending on where their background is and where they grew up, I mean, you can't even have a conversation. You can't even really say Democrat or Republican without starting a fight.
These days it's just kind of.
Or let's say mask or no mask. Now it's like, you know what I mean? Like face mask or no face mask. Now you got the same thing. It's like, it's crazy.
Know. It really is. It's really insane. Well, I think it's important to understand that at a very deep embodied level, human beings prefer oneness. We prefer sameness. It's like when we're in a group of people that are our friends and they speak our language and they dress the way we do and they like what we do, we all relax. And that when there is difference, that separation or that difference actually can be exciting because there's two-ness. Where there's two, there's energy, there's excitement, you know, so it could be like erotic energy, it could be aggression, you know, it could be creative energy. But where there's two, there's energy. And that so people have, if you can show people a roadmap, if you can help people find a way to become the same, they actually prefer that state. And so that's what a mediator always has going for them, is that there's a natural inclination as to want to be one. You know, believe it or not, this is funny, but I listen to Trump and I just, you know, Trump is developmentally kind of a toddler. You know, he's mine kind of thing. But I promise you, he just has his feelings hurt by the press. He's just in this fight with the press because the press, he believes the press never covers anything positive about him, that they're basically and to some degree, a little bit right. You know, I mean, I actually can feel empathy for him around that, trying according to what he thinks is important. But so, you know, if I were to sit down with CNN and Trump, you know,
I'd have to mediate that
between Trump and Anderson Cooper.
Oh,
you know?
Man, I would pay money to see that.
I mean, I actually would put money on that I could get them to come to agreement about it.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
You think you could get Trump and Anderson Cooper to agree on anything?
Yeah, I do.
Maybe fatherhood, right?
Yeah, I think probably, you know.
But think about that, though. I mean, think about their experiences, their life experiences. You have, you know, Anderson Cooper just had a kid. Trump, whatever, however you want to look at him, his experiences in life. I mean, these guys couldn't be they couldn't be more opposite.
They couldn't be more opposite.
I mean, more opposite than anything. Yeah. You got a guy that is respected in the media. You got a guy who's hated by the media. What would you focus? Like, what is one commonality that you would try to focus on? to bring them
Well,
together?
This is such a funny conversation. Like
I know,
the idea
right?
that we're going to mediate between Trump and Anderson Cooper. I don't even know if I could get along with Trump long enough to mediate. So one of the differences is we do have to think about human development. And I will say that Trump, in my estimation, is a less developed human being than Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper can have more perspectives and Trump can't hold as many. But I would say that they probably both have a desire to be heard, that they want the other one to hear something about what's true for them. That's probably where I start, is something around, one of the experiences that you have in common is that you feel like the other one doesn't respect you. You're not being respected. And both of you want to be respected. So what is one thing, Anderson Cooper, just one little thing that you actually do respect this man? And whether it is that, God, he got himself into the office of the president, it's just
With a red
give him
hat.
that,
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever it is, like what is it exactly? And then the reverse, Anderson Cooper wants to be seen. He wants to be heard. He wants to be respected.
Sure.
So that's usually a good place to start. Usually if you can just get that much going, and then you could maybe
do that though. Like, I don't know how you could do, like, I don't know. I'm just so in a different spot. Like, I was just having a conversation today with someone that I care about, and I'm trying to have a conversation about, there's somebody that's having a tough time that, whether it's drugs or whatever, like people around this person know that they're having a tough time, and they talk about it and they know it. But no one confronts this person and tells them. We see
no one does.
No one does. They just talk about it. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's too painful. Maybe it's too painful to acknowledge that.
Or they don't know how.
Or they don't know how. Or maybe it's a reflection upon them. Like maybe they're a failure in this instant. But nobody has that conversation. And I'm just so different now, because it's like the way that I view, maybe back in the day, maybe back in the day, I would have agreed, and said there's no hope. However, now it's like, I'm so different. We're all connected. We're all the same.
Isn't that something that you're so different? It's amazing.
Yeah. It's like that saying, right? I've said it 1,000 times on here, about, stepping in the river. You never step in the same river twice. I'm not the same as I was yesterday. We're always developing, but it never really was conscious of that.
Yeah. But what was the event that actually really shifted it for you? Did you already tell me?
Well, that started it. The book, Resisting Happiness, started it for me.
Oh, right. The priest gave it to you.
Yeah. The priest gave it to me, and that started started me tackling some things that scared me, as far as, investments, little things, it was entrepreneur at first, and the podcast helped me. I started, I had a vision, a dream of me doing the podcast. And I've always had this fascination with radio, just speaking to people, being heard, I guess. And then I focused so hard on the podcast that, I eventually almost lost my family, where I was focusing all my energy and my being on this. And I basically had blinders on, and I wasn't doing the things as a father, as a husband, that I should have been doing. I was letting a lot of things go. I was letting, I do, I have systems in place now that help me dedicate time to this. And I dedicate the rest of my time and my energy to them, my family. And it's important. If not, then if you just focus on one thing, you're not going to be able to be the best version of a father or husband that you can be.
Totally. Absolutely. I had one spiritual teacher that said one of the things about being a human being and being, kind of in our reality is that he said, be yourself, the world will give you feedback. Yeah. That you can always trust the feedback,
But I wish I could give you like one thing. It's not one thing. It's like a series of things. It's like it's the one step towards this that developed me into what I am now. Like it's not one major event. It's one
Yeah, but there's certain ones along the way, and then you're making certain choices, and it's like you just start veering towards this other experience in which you're more awake, more wakeful. You
woke.
have
I call it
kind of
woke.
greater values and more woke. Yeah. Good.
But once you see the Wizard of Oz, like there's no putting, there's no covering that curtain back, right? Like you can't Pandora doesn't go back in the box. But that's for me, right? Like I see the awareness, I see the consciousness that I've obtained, and and I love meeting and talking to people like you and learning more about meditation and learning more about your beliefs and connecting and having flow right now. Like I said, God's gift is the moment, and just being able to be in the moment with you has been fascinating.
Great.
I want to know more about your travels though. Like to Nepal and things like that. Like, how was it for you? Like to go from being, the rodeo queen or something like that to traveling in Nepal?
small town in Utah. Yeah. And then I traveled into philosophy, and then I traveled, I went to Europe when I was young and traveled around by myself for a summer like people do. And that was really eye-opening, and I experienced a lot of independence and a lot of just the European vibe, being in Paris or being in the mountains in Switzerland or being in Germany. And then I went to Asia.
Romantic. That's like so romantic.
Yeah, it was really romantic. I really enjoyed it. And then I traveled to Asia, and I spent time there studying Buddhism and studying meditation and meeting Tibetan masters and being around those teachers in Asia. And I then came back to Seattle. I worked in Seattle. So I lived most of my adult life. I lived in New York City, in Boulder, Colorado, and in Seattle, and then also in Salt Lake City. And I've done a lot of work in Denver with my colleagues. And then as a teacher, meditation teacher, human potential teacher, I do a lot of transformational seminars. I've traveled a ton. Some of my favorite places are going to South Africa and seeing in Cape Town and go to where the two oceans come together, the Cape of Good Hope, and that you can actually see the difference in the color of the water.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
and then going to Rio, being in Rio with the Brazilians, and what an incredible place it is, and their beaches, and so amazing. And
like if you had one place that you had like, I don't know, let's say one place that you can travel to and that's it, like where would you go?
At this point, I think I would spend more time in Japan.
Really? Why?
One is because the Zen tradition, the Japanese tradition is there. It's so beautiful and so refined and so incredible. And their temples are so amazing. Like Kyoto, the town of Kyoto, the city of Kyoto is like a World Heritage Site, the whole city, because the Japanese are their culture is just so beautiful and aesthetic, and, their relationship to space and their relationship to form and space is really, really beautiful. Like Japanese food is incredible, So I think I love Japanese culture right now. I'd like to spend time there. It's not quite, I don't quite understand, to be honest, the Japanese emotionally. I think they're quite different emotionally than we are, but their aesthetic life is just insane. I really love it.
That's awesome.
Where would you go?
Me? See, I'm obsessed with the young Ernest Hemingway. So I want to go. Yeah, that's the name of the show is actually after one of his quotes.
What is it? The superior self?
Yeah. So true nobility is not being superior to former man or to your, not former man. True nobility is not being superior to your, not former man. How does it go? True nobility is not being superior to a man. I'm just going to say that because I can't think of the word right now. True nobility is being superior to your former self. Oh, so I took that and I was like, yeah. I like that. So I took that and said, Ernest Hemingway is my favorite author, the young Hemingway, not the old Hemingway who might have been a communist. I don't know, but just him traveling, and experiencing Europe, Paris, going, seeing Running the Bulls. And my favorite book is of his is Sun Also Rises, and how he describes those European towns, like back in the day, like early 1900s, where there were no maps, right? Like, there were maps, but like, you can't go on Google and search images and write about these towns. Like, he described these towns to a T in the book. And if you go on Google now and you research it, like these, I can see, like I can read his book and I can see the town perfectly, the way he describes it with the colors and the background and the forest, everything. And then I go on Google now. It's just his gift. I mean, he won a freaking contest. I think it was in a bar or something like that, where I think it was like the shortest, they had to write a short poem or something, and it had to make another guy cry or something like that.
Oh, and he did, I'm sure.
He did. And you know what it was? It was
what?
For sale, infant shoes, never worn. So it was like an advertisement in a paper.
Did he really do that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And the thing about Hemingway, he's like truly American writer in that really concrete, simple language that communicates so much.
I love Hemingway. Like, he's,
Fantastic.
he was like that American badass in Paris, going out and sitting with, all the guys and, just being that guy coming in there and getting in a fight and going to whatever. And then, I don't know, that whole idea of just, just traveling Europe and experiencing that 100%, like that's what I fell in love with. And then his book and how he was able to write and be so, like you said, use like common language words and describe things to a T. And then, I don't know, that's, the show is not based off it, but named after his quote, which, I hopefully I can honor him in that sense.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a quote from the German poet Rilke where he says, if I get it right, I think he said, we should wish to be defeated by greater and greater beings.
I love that too. Anything that makes us want to get better is I'm all about. And that's why I loved your book, because it helps us get better at the hardest thing. The hardest thing is to have a conversation and to understand, that's how you're going to connect with someone, because how else are you going to connect with someone without conversation, without communication? Like, you can't. And
what do you think the hardest thing for you and I to talk about would be?
You and I? I think we have a lot of similarities. So I don't, and you're very open, worldly, and you're very open, and you're very kind and warm. So I wouldn't necessarily.
You wouldn't be worried about talking about too much.
No, not at all. Not with you. And plus, I'm very transparent, and I'm very open anyway. Like, I don't care. I'll air my trash. I don't care if it helps somebody learn. Like, I don't care about that.
So I edited myself. So let's talk about something. But it's really important to me that when we talk about it, like, I want you to hear that it's a genuine question. So what about the part of Hemingway that, about the part of him that was really macho? And like I respect his adventuresomeness. I respect his robust, I can respect his masculinity, but I think he could be violent, couldn't he?
Sure. No, there was some instances where, I'm sure he got in a couple bar fights and things like that, but it's like the image, right? It's like the image of masculinity, that superiority of the dominant alpha male, right? Like that idea is what it is attractive. And I think it's every, and maybe not everyone's, every boy's dream to be that alpha male, but it's mine.
Great. Just to be the big monkey.
Just to be the big monkey on top.
Absolutely.
But that's me.
It's kind of built in. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want to be a natural born leader. I want to be a guy that's looked upon has leadership qualities and is able to speak his mind, but also be vulnerable and admit when he's wrong and show sincere, what's the word I want to look for? Sincere sensitivity towards people.
And receptivity,
Yeah.
like being open to others and their perspectives. Do you feel bad about the fact that Hemingway shot himself?
But I don't feel bad about that. I know that later, I tried to read a book about his later years, and there was a lot of conspiracy theories about him being involved with, like, being a communist, and I think he was struggling. I think it was just complicated, right?
He probably was. My guess is, I don't know, because I don't know his history very well, but did he drink too much at the end?
I don't know that for sure. I don't know. I don't.
He's a great artist. Maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, maybe. But I again, he was a womanizer too. I mean, he had, his share of flings, but people don't look at that and say, I want to be that, right? They just see they see the trophy years where a lot of his success was when he was younger, and then he unraveled a little bit. I mean, you can look at anybody today with that type of success and kind of see a similarity to it. Where somebody's on top, especially like, movie stars and stuff like that, where they get that success and reward, right? And they can't top it. They keep reaching for that, and it tears them up, and they can't, because of the chemicals in our mind, right? Like
even Kanye got a little shaky.
Yeah.
Seems like he's calmed down a little bit now.
Yeah. I mean, it's the serotonin and the oxytocin that we want to be a part of the tribe, right? And we want that respect. We want to keep getting that respect. And
I actually heard, I don't know if this is true, but I actually heard that when males get more power and more status, they actually get more testosterone. They get like testosterone. Yeah. It's like a rush.
So, but shouldn't Trump have this massive, like, I don't know, I guess all that testosterone, he would, grow his own hair and beard, and he wouldn't be orange, right? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I don't want anybody to get upset, because I'm sure
the truth is, as an individual, I can feel a lot of compassion for Trump. As a leader, we got to get rid of him.
Sure.
There's just no question in my mind.
Get rid of him.
He's got to go. Yeah. God.
Diane, this has been fun. I loved every bit of this. Thank you so much for taking the time. Like, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for writing the book. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you for being so interesting and for reaching out. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't compliment you on the glasses. Those rose-colored glasses.
You know what they are, right? The blue light glasses. Do you know what they are? So no? my buddy Andy Mant owns a company called Blue Blocks. It's in Australia.
Okay.
And they're blue light blocking lenses. So at nighttime, so it doesn't mess with your circadian rhythm.
Oh.
So blue light scientifically is what triggers your body to think that it's still daylight out. So when the sun sets, you put these on, and it blocks all the blue light from your electronic devices, so that your circadian rhythm starts kicking in. And so your body's, you get that, what is it? What's the chemical that helps you sleep? It's, I can't remember. I can't think of the name, but anyway, so your body produces it, more of it. Melatonin.
Okay.
Melatonin.
Oh, okay.
But when you look at your devices, the blue light tricks your body into thinking it's daylight. So it produces less melatonin. So the blue blocks help you sleep at night, and it helps me 100%. 100% helps me get to sleep faster and in a more healthier sleep. More REM, more rest. I feel.
When do you put them on? What time?
Well, right now the sun sets around 8:30, so I usually put them around 8.
Oh,
something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought they were like rose-colored glasses because you're so positive now.
Oh, she's awesome. Diane, how can people connect with you?
They can connect with me by going to my website, DianeMushoHamilton.com. And I have 3 different books, but the latest one is Compassionate Conversations. And you can pick it up on my website. There are 3 or 4 different places you can purchase it, depending on your preferences.
Awesome.
So thanks again for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to Diane for joining the show and hanging out and just crushing this interview. I want to say thank you to you, the listener, for hanging out and being an amazing audience. Thank you guys so much. Please go to yoursuperiorself.com and leave me some feedback. Let me know how you enjoyed the show. If you enjoyed it, what you think should get better, let me know. Follow me on social media, Instagram TDowns80 and on Twitter at DownsTray. Guys, thank you so much for everything that you guys do for the show, and have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you later.